This is Sigrún with the Universal Pagan Temple, and today we are going to be taking a look at what Nick Fuentes has had to say about astrology. But if you're a new viewer, thank you so much for dropping by, and if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. Again, we have lots of links down in the description below, so please check those out, but let's get into the video. Okay, here in an interview, Nick Fuentes, with his monster drink here, is going to talk to us about his beliefs and opinions. And by the way, I am not a fan of Nick Fuentes. He has had a lot of negative things to say about paganism and witches, and he is no friend to paganism and witches. And he's no friend to these Christians that he's misleading. Because he's leading them into Christianity and not to paganism. And, you know, as I've been saying, that if you are Christian, you may think of yourself as a non-Zionist Christian, but you're like an alcoholic in a liquor store or in a bar. There's always that temptation to go back to it. But let's get back into it.
Why do you think Gen Z women are obsessed with astrology?
First of all, astrology is real. If you're a Catholic...
Okay, I appreciate him actually saying that astrology is real, because a lot of Christians will say astrology is fake, and they are misguided on this, that they don't understand what astrology is. And what they'll bring up, this one article from NASA about the 13 signs. It's not 12 signs of the zodiac, but, you know, Christian men tend to be really uneducated in this part of the occult and of paganism, where they don't understand how much astrology was linked into the cycles and the seasons of the year, and that's why it's 12 signs. Alrighty, let's get back into it.
If you're a Christian, this is actually part of our tradition. Astrology is all over the Bible. And
Very much so, because there is such a thing as called astrotheology. And then the Catholic Church, throughout its history, has either utilized astrologers. Who was it? It was one of the Pope Leo's, I believe, Pope Leo X. He kept astrologers on staff, and then during the Renaissance period, there were a lot of priests and cardinals that utilized astrology. Let's get back into it.
Reason as Catholics we can't engage in astrology is because there's something real about it, and to engage in it is to attempt to thwart God's plan.
That is absolutely not what astrology is about. A lot of people tend to think of astrology as fortune telling. It is more of, you are looking at your natal chart, or somebody else's natal chart, or, you know, a synastry chart, and you are looking at the influences of the planets upon you, you know, and their transits, how the planets are interacting with each other and with you and your situation. And it's a most likely scenario that things are going to happen. Say we just got out of a Mercury retrograde earlier today. But we're still in Mercury's shadow period, okay. But when Mercury retrograde happens, a lot of people freak out, thinking that, okay, well, Mercury rules communication, travel, and electronics, so on and so forth, and it's guaranteed that something's going to happen. Well, no, nothing. It's not guaranteed that something bad will happen. It's just your chances, or the chances of it happening, are increased during a Mercury retrograde, and it depends on how, you know, it lands in your chart. That's why it's so important to actually have your time of birth, as opposed to just being a sun sign amateur where you just know your sun sign.
To sort of say that we are masters of fate, and if we can learn the secrets of the universe, we can control our destiny.
Again, it's not about controlling destiny, maybe he's thinking about witchcraft and magic, where, the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. Astrology, well, you can utilize it in magic, and I have utilized it in magic before. What he's saying here, I think he's getting magic and astrology confused.
When God controls our destiny, and that's why we appeal to God. And so now there's a new age upon us where...
Well, yeah, we pagans appeal to many gods and goddesses for the answers that we seek and the outcomes that we want. But ultimately, we have more control over our destinies than we think. Whereas Christianity, they tend to say, oh, well, it's in God's plan for you. And it's just, it's a copium. It's a cope. It's a lot of hopium.
There is interest in the supernatural. There is interest in higher powers and maybe invisible forces. But without the guidance of the church, because the church is out of fashion, now people are looking...
Okay, the guidance of the church, the Catholic Church. I don't know if he's probably aware. I don't watch him too much, but he's probably aware of the woke that is going on in the Catholic Church right now. Do you really want to tell people to go look at the church right now?
Everywhere else. So many of the white nationalists are really getting into like Apollo and Zeus. And on the other side, on the left, they're getting into witchcraft.
Okay. Yeah, Apollo and Zeus, and it's not just men on the right, it's everybody is. And it's not just the left that's getting into witchcraft, everybody is. And this has been going on for years and years. It's not just Gen Z. I mean, I'm a millennial. I know boomers. I know silent generation. And even before that, a lot of people have been getting into paganism and witchcraft over, for a long period of time, even back in the Victorian era. Where this natural progression to return back to our pagan roots, they've been calling us our pagan gods, goddesses, and our ancestors have been calling us back to them. And a lot of us are heeding the call. A lot of Christians are resisting the call, but are acting in a very pagan manner. All they have to do is take that last step, burn their Bible, and come back to paganism.
And I think it needs to be eradicated from society. I think it's very evil.
Okay, yeah, there's Nick Fuentes doing the Nick Fuentes thing, saying that it needs to be eradicated and it's very evil, but without knowing that, a lot of the issues that men have with astrology is, they are dealing with sun sign amateurs. People, mostly women and girls, that just know their sun signs. Your first sign, your sun sign, is going to be the one that you were born under. Say right now you're in Sagittarius, so if you were born now, you'd be a Sagittarius. But that does not define you entirely, but it gives you influences, as such as your ego. But you have to look at your entire natal chart to understand the influences of the planets on you and their relation to each other. The aspects in your chart, it's very important. And they malign astrology because they don't understand how deep it goes. They malign astrology because they believe astronomy has replaced it. No, it hasn't. They malign astrology because they assume it's New Age. It's not. It's pagan in origin. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, it came all the way back from Babylon to Greece to Egypt, and then it developed separately. With their own traditions in India, China, and other places across the world, had their own forms of astrology because it's about this, the seasons. And our pagan ancestors were very smart in that they didn't have their heads buried in a phone all day, so they actually paid attention to, these patterns, in which were the seasons, and that's why we have 12 signs of the zodiac in Western astrology. Um, the cardinal signs start out the seasons, and with the equinoxes and the solstices, it's very much aligned, and that is how our ancestors understood, when the seasons were, how to describe the seasons. um, say right now we are in mutable autumn, which is Sagittarius, and then when winter comes around, we are going to be in cardinal Capricorn. And then from Capricorn cardinal, we go into fixed winter, which will be Aquarius. And then from fixed winter, we go into mutable Pisces, where we start to see, the first signs of spring come around, but we're still in winter. Although if you're certain parts of the planet, I understand if winter doesn't really end until April, or May. It kind of reminds me of my late father. He was in Minnesota for years, and he described a blizzard on May 25th. And that is when eventually he moved to Texas. But anyway, that's a completely different silly topic that has popped up in my head. But as far as astrology goes, yes, it is pagan, and it needs to be taken seriously by pagans. You should learn how to read your own natal chart at least. You don't have to get into the whole synastry thing. But yeah, astrology is just showing you the influences of the planets upon you and your life, and you can see where you were lacking, as far as the elements of the signs in your chart are, and you can work on that. It's mostly for a lot of self-help, and it's not new age. It's actually, quite ancient and esoteric. People have been studying their natal charts for centuries. Another thing he mentioned, where women are picking up on astrology and the new age, it's really because they feel pushed out by Christianity, which, essentially they're right to do so, because intuitively most women who have any sort of intuition, really, I should be saying, know that they're really not welcome in Christianity because it's a boys' club. I know there are some women within Christianity that hold a lot of power, but they have kind of a distorted personality. If you're a woman and you've been around these women, you know what I'm talking about. They're very, lack of a better term, sadistic, very cruel, very childish, backstabbing behavior. I always say that Christianity brings out the worst in women, especially, and then also men, but mostly women, and that's why they, shed this Christianity and go into the New Age. And I understand that the New Age does have its pitfalls, where they're not going straight to paganism, they're going right into the New Age, and they're learning things incorrectly without going to the actual pagan sources, which they should be doing, in terms of getting a better education and actually connecting with gods and goddesses, where, as a lot of New Agers, they are kind of one foot in Christianity, one foot in esoteric studies, and kind of dabbling with goddesses, where they need to take that foot out of Christianity completely and go into paganism. And that's what I see on the right, as well as I see a lot of these Christian men saying that I'm not I'm not a Zionist, I'm not a Christian Zionist, I don't support that. Well, you still are a Christian, and you're still at risk, You need to come all the way into paganism. That way you are completely free. Again, with these women who are, just dabbling in the New Age, they need to come all the way into paganism, and they will find deeper traditions that will honor their, ancestors and help them a lot more. When they start to do, deeper understandings of themselves, like shadow work, they won't be scared and run back to Christianity, because you actually see a lot of that going on. Is they get scared and they run back to Christianity. Well, that's because they don't know enough to be able to look in the mirror and look at that darker part of themselves and understand how to utilize that. Where, in actual astrology studies, you can look at your natal chart and understand the worst parts of yourself and the best parts of yourself, and how to overcome and utilize the worst parts of yourself. But anyway, I think I've ranted for long enough here. But until next time, blessed be.